Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Construction Specifiers Democast on Crash-Rated Bollards by Reliance Foundry. My name is Nitya, and I'll be moderating today's presentation. Before I introduce the speaker, please note your mics are muted. It would be best if you turn on the speaker view. That said, if you have any questions for our speakers, feel free to post them in the Q&A forum. We will address as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. If you have any connectivity or Zoom-related questions, you can use the chat feature to communicate with us, and we'll do our best to help you. Today's presentation is being recorded. It will be available on the Construction Specifier website, so you can access it whenever you need to. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker. Kimberly Diozegi is a marketing manager at Reliance Foundry. Len Cranmore, sales manager at Reliance Foundry, will also be joining us today later. In today's presentation, Kimberly will provide an overview of Reliance Foundry's crash-rated or K-rated bollards that are engineered to stop vehicles and secure perimeters. With that, I'll turn things over to Kimberly.
Thank you, Nithya. So my name is Kimberly. I'm the marketing manager at Reliance Foundry. I do have an engineering background, which is why I'm on a construction democast today. And Len, our sales manager, will be joining us for the question and answer period once I'm done the presentation. So just a little bit about Reliance Foundry. We've been around since 1925. We started as a steel and iron metal casting foundry for municipal, mining, and forestry products, mostly. Today, we primarily specialize in bollards, but we also sell bike parking, industrial wheels, OEM parts, and we recently introduced a hardscape line, which is trench grates, tree grates, and detectable warning plates. We are based just outside of Vancouver in Canada, but we do ship across North America, so customers all over Canada and the US, and a few further afield as well. So we'll dive right in. Bollards. What are bollards? Bollards are short posts designed to guide traffic or mark perimeters. These can be physical or visual barriers. So an example of a visual barrier would just be a marker telling cars or other vehicles not to cross that barrier. We offer something like a flexible bollard, which would be if an emergency vehicle needed to cross it, or if it was a high traffic area where cars were likely to bump into it, no damage would be sustained to the vehicle or the bollard itself. The opposite side to that is the physical barriers. So those are actually going to provide a stopping point for a vehicle. Those can be on the lighter side, so it might just be a stainless steel empty cover, and that would provide some physical resistance, but it's not going to provide a lot, all the way up to a security bollard, which is what we'll be talking about today. So security bollards are any bollard intended to prevent a vehicle from crossing over. The baseline standard of that is a steel pipe filled with concrete, and these are embedded into the ground concrete. These are generally enough to provide more than enough impact resistance against most accidents, so things like pedal error or loss of vehicle control. However, not every crash is an accident, unfortunately. So for targeted attacks in criminal or terrorist scenarios, then that might not be enough. And we just don't know because a general steel pipe filled with concrete isn't actually tested against vehicle crashes. So that's where crash-rated bollards come in. These are bollards, security bollards, that are engineered and tested to evaluate their impact resistance against vehicles of a certain weight and at certain speeds. So a little bit about the history of crash ratings. They were first developed by the Defense Department in the 1980s, and it was a system for evaluating structural resistance to assault. However, it was any structure, and this is the K-rating program. Following 9/11, however, the Department of State revived it, the K-rating system, but it was now for any barriers, so a perimeter installation, such as bollard, a fence, a median, or other barrier. These were tested against 15,000-pound diesel trucks, impacting at 30, 40, or 50 miles per hour. So there's a different K rating for each of those speeds. The Department of State was also particularly interested in explosives or bombs, so they created a penetration rating. So at each of these speeds, When the vehicle impacted the bollard, they couldn't penetrate further than 3.3 feet, or about a meter, beyond the flatbed of the truck. So here are the K ratings. We have the K4, which was for residential speeds, or 30 miles per hour. Then there's the K8, which is a little bit faster for arterial roads at 40 miles per hour, or the K12, which is highway speeds, or 50 miles per hour. All of these apply to that 15,000-pound truck and stopping within 3.3 feet. So from there, there was widespread interest in the K-rated installations. However, obviously not every vehicle is a 15,000-pound truck. So the American Society for Testing of Materials, ASTM, developed a more rigorously stepped program. They created 4 classes of vehicles. So they have cars, pickup trucks, medium-duty trucks, and heavy goods vehicles, so not just that one designation. And they also have different speeds. So they actually range from 30 to 60 miles per hour. Although this system has actually replaced the K-rated system for certification and engineering and testing, generally in the industry, we still refer to it as K ratings. So that's still the most common name, even though technically it's a historical designation. So the ASTM ratings, the first class we have is the medium duty truck. That's our 15,000-pound truck. That's the traditional K rating. And the speed ratings are 30, 40, and 50, just like the K rating system. However, then we go on to the small passenger car, which is your normal average small car on the road, for 40, 50, or 60 miles per hour. Sorry, I'm Canadian. Then we have the pickup truck at 5,000 pounds for 40, 50, or 60 miles per hour again. And then a larger vehicle, heavy goods vehicle, at 30, 40, or 50. The reason for the slight change in speeds is just the assumption that generally if you have a smaller vehicle, you'll be able to build up speed a little bit faster and get to a higher speed before you crash into the barrier. ASTM also recognized that not every barrier is placed at the same distance away from a building, so they also created penetration ratings. So P1, which is the equivalent to the historical K rating, that's the 3.3 feet. However, they also have P2, which is up to 23 feet, P3 up to almost 100 feet, and then P4 is larger than that. I'll also note that because bollards are going to be placed quite close together, you don't want your car to drive just between 2 of them. It's possible for a car to either hit one bollard or hit multiple, and that can change the penetration rating. So for example, you could hit one bollard on its own and that might have a P2 rating, but if you were to clip the edges of 2 bollards as you drive into them, that could be a P1 rating. So it is possible to have a higher rating by installing your bollards closer together. So Reliance's crash-rated bollards, we have 3 different models. The 1009-40 on the left, that is the ASTM C40, or the small car at the 40 miles per hour. The center one is the 1009-04, that's the K4 bollard, or the ASTM M30. And then on the right there, we have the 1009-12, which is the K12 bollard, or the ASTM M50. All 3 of these are made of steel. And they come empty, but then as soon as they're installed, they're filled with concrete. So essentially you have a steel and concrete pipe, just a lot bigger than a traditional steel and concrete pipe. The one on the left there, that's about 200 pounds. And the one on the right goes all the way up to about 1,300 pounds. So these are really large, heavy bollards, even before they're filled. All 3 of these versions come in fixed and removable options. So if you have an event or a location that might have seasonal events where you need to remove the bollard, or a driveway that you need for special access, but you don't want to leave a hole in your perimeter, they do have removable options, and we'll talk a little bit about how that works in a couple slides. So for installation, traditionally crash-rated bollards were quite difficult to install. They required a lot of placing rebar and making sure everything was lined up before they were cemented. However, today's crash-rated bollards and ours are a lot easier to install. So when you're installing them, essentially you're going to dig a large hole. The size of the hole does depend on which model you choose. So with all our products, we ship out, and it's also available on the website, product drawings, and they'll have the actual technical specifications of what size you need. So you're checking for your underground wiring, piping, all that, permits if you need, and then you dig your giant hole. And then you're going to stick a brace or a concrete block at the bottom of the hole. And that should be tall enough so that when you place your bollard on top of it, the top of the gusset lines up with the surface grade, as seen in this diagram. Once your bollard is there, essentially you're just going to pour your concrete. So it's going to go around the bollard and into the pipe as well. You're pouring the concrete into the hole up to the surface grade, smoothing it out. Obviously make sure your bollard is plumb at this point, because once the concrete is cured, that's it. That's the whole point of it. And then you smooth out your surface grade concrete and let it cure and you're good to go. You can also cover it with a decorative cover. We do sell those as well, just because the steel pipes don't always look the nicest. So especially if you're protecting a large, beautiful architectural building or something stately, a nice cover to have on top is good to have. So we have a few different installation options for those. And again, those are found on our website, depending on which model you choose. So for removable bollards, essentially how this works is the concrete that's filled through the pipe doesn't actually connect to the concrete in the hole, so they're not sealing together. And the pipe itself operates kind of like a straw in a cup. So when you're removing it, you're just going to be pulling that straw out of the cup. That's kind of the easiest way to explain how it works. So if you had a decorative cover on there, you would take that off. There is a small hole through the top of the pipe bollard. You can stick a construction pipe through there to be used as a lifting handle, or you can just choke the bollard and lift it out. Obviously, these are heavy, up to 1,300 pounds is a lot. So you're going to need a forklift or some sort of lifting machinery to do that. Once it's out, we do provide caps that come with these removable versions so that you can place that cap over the hole in the ground so that it's no longer a tripping hazard and it doesn't fill with debris while the bollard has been removed. So here we have just a couple examples of our covers. These are our decorative options. We have a lot more on the website. I just wanted to provide a few just to show what's possible. We have different cover options available for each of the different sizes, since the different K-rated and C40 bollards are different diameters and different heights. But we have iron, aluminum, and steel options, and stainless steel as well. We also have 6 different color options for powder coating, so these are just showing a couple of those options. And another steel option, or sorry, iron option there, and then some stainless steel cover options as well. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch quickly on iron armor. I won't spend too much time talking about this just because it could probably take up an entire demo cast all on its own. But it is our new coating. It's an alternative to powder coating. It's available for any bollard that could be powder coated. And it is essentially a lot more resistant. So it doesn't chip as easily as a traditional powder coating. If it does get scratched, it's field repairable, which is really cool. Instead of having to take down the whole cover, burn it off, re-powder coat it, you can actually melt it and fix it in the field. It's really resistant to weather, so salt, UV, humidity, de-icing, and fertilizer, other typical outdoor chemicals that you'll see. It's really great against all those. And then, not that I would ever recommend eating off of a bollard, but it is food and water safe, or food and drink safe, and is safe for playground use as well. So if you have any questions on that, please let us know. That's a whole other topic. And then the last thing I'll mention that I forgot earlier in my slides was how to pick which crash rating that you might need. And really it's based on the location. So if you look around your location and it's a parking lot and you have lots of concrete parking stops or signage, places to put shopping carts, you're probably not going to need a really high strength barrier because you've got other obstacles in the way. Or if you've got lots of trees or other landscape features that are going to prevent a car from getting up to speed, then that's going to help and you need a lower rating. However, if you're at the end of a long boulevard and cars can really get up to speed and there aren't a lot of obstacles in the way, that's when you would need a higher rating. So that's all I have. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to go for a brief walk to the warehouse so we can actually see these as Len takes over the question and answer, and I'll turn things over to Nithya.
Thank you, Kimberly. We now have some time for questions. If you have any, please post them in the Q&A section, and I'll ask Kimberly and Len to address them. So, Kimberly, we have a couple of questions here. Do you want to start answering them, or should we wait for Len to join us?
He is with me now, so I will point the screen towards the crash-rated bollards, hopefully.
Okay.
There we go. And then, Len, why don't you stand next to them and answer?
Sure.
Hi, Len. Welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So a couple of questions here. First one, are there options available for parking garage floors which are elevated floor slabs, not at grade?
Could you explain that a
So,
little further?
so basically, the options that you currently presented, there are at grade, right? Are there any options available for garage floors which are elevated floor slabs, where the slab is elevated?
Oh, like a shallow mount system?
Yes.
Ours, they're not currently, no. We don't do a shallow mount system at this time.
Okay, got it. Another question, the removable bollards, are they filled with concrete?
Yes, they are. There's concrete and there's rebar as well that goes in each bollard as well.
Okay, thank you. The next question, are there codes which apply to where bollards are required?
It would depend on the installation. So if you, I mean, probably by state, there might be certain requirements at the state level or even municipal level. But most of our customers that we're dealing with, they're just evaluating what their needs are and selecting based on that.
Okay, thank you. What product would you use for a PU40?
So ours is the C40, so it's a little bit lower than that.
Okay.
Whereas the K4 is going to be a little bit better. So if you're looking for a minimum PU40, we don't unfortunately carry that at the moment, so I would go for the K4.
Okay, got it. So how far apart should you install these bollards?
Generally, we suggest installing bollards about 3 to 5 feet apart. So as I mentioned, the penetration rating, if you're looking for a higher rating, you can install them a little bit closer together. But generally, I wouldn't go more than 5 feet as you can start to drive between the two.
Okay. And how long does the concrete take to cure on these? Or how long after install are they functional?
Typically, concrete reaches its maximum strength after 128 days.
Okay. And what part of the specification would these go under?
I believe they're section 347113.16, and that's vehicle crash barriers.
Okay, got it. So we're just going to, let leave the floor open for some more questions. If anyone has any questions, you can post them in the Q&A forum. Just going to give them a couple of minutes to see if they have any additional questions. Okay, we have one here. Is the installation of bollards essentially an engineering judgment based on threat assessments or other decision-making factors? In other words, is there no building code requirement for bollards?
I think this is similar to the previous question, where I think it depends, like you might have certain requirements if you have a government building, but our experience has been generally it's up to the risk assessment and the engineers to decide.
Okay, got it. Just going to give them a few more seconds just to see if anybody else has any other questions.
Do you want to maybe film?
Yeah, we can go a little closer. Let's see, I'll stop sharing my screen if I can. Oh. No, apparently I can't. There we go. This will give you a bit of a closer view. I can't even go that close, they're too big.
Thank you. Okay, since we have no more questions, I'd like to thank Kimberly and Len for joining us today and explaining Reliance Foundry's crash-rated bollards. A recording of the democast will be available 1 week from now. We will also send a link to the recording via email to all registrants. Thanks to everyone who attended. Before you go, please take a few minutes to give us your feedback by completing our survey. It should appear in your browser after you close Zoom. Have a great afternoon and stay safe. Namaste.
Thank you.
Bye.